Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Leadership DJs podcast. It seems to be kind of universal that everybody hates meetings, right? I mean, no one, who is the person that is like, hey, we really should have more meetings, or hey, those meetings were really effective. I mean, you just never hear that, right? It's just a cliche already. And yet, I think if we only take the cliche, only take the stereotype, we misunderstand that meetings are really important, and actually a lot of leadership and leadership credibility is built, a lot of the rapport, a lot of the culture we create on a team is built in meetings, formal and informal meetings. Well, now of course, given COVID and technology, even take the pandemic out of it, right, we're going more towards virtual meetings. I mean, it's been rushed in terms of normalization, that meetings I think are probably primarily virtual now. And there are lots of complications that come from that. What concerns do you have, or do you see surrounding virtual meetings?
Well, before I respond to that, let me just go on to echo something you've said, which is the importance of meetings and the fact that that really is, in many instances, the only opportunity where people in certain positions have a chance to command attention, to drive an agenda of a group, and to be perceived and to build leadership capital in a specific way. But if you're to say, well, what are the concerns about virtual meetings? We were in a decision-making meeting not too long ago, early in the phases of quarantining and distancing for public health reasons. And we came to a certain point where two or three people had something that they wanted to say. They all started talking at once, and then they all backed out, and then they all tried to defer to each other. And then eventually one person kind of took the opportunity and took the discussion a direction. And I found myself wondering, did the other two people in that situation actually get their input recognized? Did they have an opportunity to circle back? And was there enough iteration available that you got a quality set of ideas and inputs? So I think a concern that we may need to have about virtual meetings is the fact that not only have nonverbal cues been reduced, and that can be tough for leaders to read a room, but now the exchange, the communication exchange, is generally regulated by a single audio stream. So you can't really have multiple conversations going at once that culminate into ideas at the right point in time. You can almost think about it like a channel where you can't get too many boats going through at once, so you have to regulate it. It's like one through at a time, right? So that brings a real focus, I think, or it should bring a real focus on the real estate that meetings provide, and how we're using those effectively. Are there things that before we got into this virtual environment that leaders or teams should be mindful of in terms of what they're getting out of their meetings anyway?
Yeah, I like what you said about it's kind of the platform or the stage for leaders to be leaders, team leaders to be team leaders, right? Usually everyone's there, and everyone kind of expects that this is now a leadership role that you're playing. And it's funny you mentioned the mix, and I think it's mixed at best. Reputation, I think that's being generous to meetings, but the mixed reputation that meetings have is that meetings, if everyone kind of has this almost default disdain for meetings, you got to know that they can be very costly if you do meetings badly. It's not just, oh, here's another bad meeting, right? It can start to impact your leadership capital. And so you've got to understand, you've got to make sure, not that meetings have to be sort of become a carnival or a celebration, or people feel like they're Disneyland or Mardi Gras or whatever else it is, but you've got to make sure that they're really useful. You're starting to set norms for people, and you're almost starting to establish team roles, including and anybody who's been in a meeting or part of a team know that there's some people that are going to come and dominate a meeting, and others who are wallflowers, right? But now this is happening virtually. So what can we share with people that are listening, people that are watching, in terms of how this translate, all these concepts that we're talking about translates to virtual meetings?
Well, one of the things that we did is we concocted a basic survey to kind of get at the extent to which participation has altered in a virtual environment. If you were to view meetings as an opportunity to harvest perspectives, then you probably want to make sure that you're getting the proportions that you need to be fully informed, to facilitate the targeted collaboration and participation that you think is important for your culture, and to make sure that the people who may be least likely to say something, who often know certain market conditions better than other people, don't get lost in decision-making processes. And so we're kind of looking at this saying, well, how does this affect the proportion of participation? And for what it's worth, we already know that in-person meetings have power dynamics that influence participation anyway. What's the evolution in a virtual setting? Well, sure enough, we found that at least a third of the people that we surveyed, again, it was close to 400 managers and others that participate now in virtual meetings. About a third of them have altered their engagement patterns in meetings compared from in-person to virtual. Leaders can expect to get more quantity of engagement from fewer people and less quality of engagement from more people. You know, I think the good news for us is meetings have never been a question about technology. It has always been a question about leadership and culture and interpersonal dynamics in a team. What do you think leaders need to do in this environment in order to make virtual meetings as successful as they can be?
First, let me re-emphasize, if I can, something that I think I heard you just say, and that is, so there are what we'll call exigent circumstances right now, pandemic, you know, that COVID-19, that sort of thing, putting this demand on us to have more virtual meetings. And they're just by nature of the technology, there are some challenges inherent to it, but the solution is not a technological solution. I love that because look, yes, the dynamics of what would make your meetings challenging or participation challenging, yes, it might be exacerbated or changed a little bit because of technology, but it's always a leadership solution, live or virtually. But how is that, you know, more quality or more quantity versus less quality dynamic? How does that impact team decision making or the decision making of as a leader, where that's a major leadership activity? It's a major team activity. There's just no way it can't not impact, I think, ultimately the quality of the decisions that you make. Leaders that are conscientious and aware of this dynamic that this survey data has revealed is to be intentional in terms of getting people the balls, so to speak. And that is making sure that you are actively going out of your way to seek out the participation of those who might be less inclined to participate. And create environments. And by the way, this may, anybody hearing that says, yeah, you should do that for every meeting to get participation. Well, yeah, but in this case, it might require you to do it outside of the meeting. Even if the dynamics of the virtual meeting are such that it's going to disincline people to participate, maybe you do that beforehand and say, hey, by the way, we're going to be talking about these topics in that meeting. I think the team would benefit from hearing from you. Could you think about these things for a bit, right? Give them that assist, so to speak, and to keep with the basketball language.
As we've outlined what we think might be helpful for leaders, we reference one Larry Joe Bird, the hick from French Lick. I remember watching this video as a kid when I aspired to be Larry Bird, called Larry Bird, a basketball legend. And in there, they interview one of his teammates, Quinn Buckner, who basically said one of the things he admired most about Larry Bird was he could do everything himself, but when certain people weren't involved enough, he would go out of his way to pull them into being involved. And I think that's kind of maybe the bottom line is Larry Legend has something to teach us all as it relates to not just meetings generally, but in this environment of virtual meetings where our participation is getting consolidated down to a single audio stream, that increases the need for someone to do the very things you've explained. And if folks want to kind of dig around on what we learned in the survey and some of those recommendations, they can definitely go to the idea topic or the idea post that's linked in the description of this video. So yeah, that's all I got for you, buddy.
Okay, well, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that. I think that the data from that survey, nuanced, right, subtle, but absolutely critical for leaders out there to understand the impact and what's happening with virtual meetings. So thanks everybody for listening, for watching. For more about these kinds of topics, leadership topics, a white paper on this very discussion, some of the data you can see from this survey that we're talking about, please go to actualizeperformancesolutions.com. Please look for the Leadership DJs podcast. Look for us on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, all that good stuff. And good luck, everybody. Thanks for the time. Survey on high talkers and low talkers.
Wait, are the low talkers lean to puffy shirts?
Yeah.